In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use 3 methods for sewing your crochet pieces together. So this is for items like garments or blankets, wherever you need to join crochet pieces together, these are 3 sewing seams that you can choose to use. Now, obviously, when you're joining, you might be joining the raw edges, or you might be joining the top like this. I'm going to be joining these 2 edges today. I'm also using different colours just to make it stand out a little bit more for you so that you can see where the stitches are going and make it easier. But obviously, if you're joining something and you want it to look seamless, then you would be using the same colour throughout. So let's start with the first method. So the first method is the mattress stitch. This is really good for garments. So for example, if you're joining the shoulder seam, this is a really nice sturdy stitch, but you could use it for blankets as well if you want something which is really going to hold those seams together. So obviously you may have left your tail ends, like a long tail end to use to sew in, but I'm going to use a separate colour so that you can see the difference, or if you need to, you can get your same colour and attach it to a darning needle so that you can start your seam. So what we're going to do here first of all is just insert our darning needle into this very first stitch. You can do one side or the other, but you want to go from back to front, so I'm just going to pull that through like so. I'm going to leave a longish tail end so that I can sew that in, and then on the other side with the corresponding stitch, you're going to go from back to front again. Now this very first seam, you may want to do that twice. So go from back to front in that very first stitch that you've already done, and then back to front again. And what this does is it just makes that very first stitch a little bit more sturdy. We're then going to move up to the next stitch on this first side. So from back to front, you're going to pull through, and then on the opposite side, from back to front and pull through. So this is a little bit like lacing up a pair of shoes or a corset, something like that. So from back to front on the next stitch, and then back to front of the corresponding stitch. So you can choose to lay out your project like this, or you can actually pick it up like this. Whichever you prefer, it's total personal preference, but we're just going to use that same technique. So from inside to outside, pull through, inside to outside, and pull through. And you're going to work this all the way along until you get to your last stitch. So it's a nice simple method. As I say, it's really nice and sturdy, perfect for garments. And then what you also find is if I lay this down and then I just give this a nice little pull, it actually brings those together and creates a nice flat seam. So it's a flat seam on the front and also a flat seam on the back. You will see this first one just a little bit more, but if you just give that a pull, you can see that disappear. So if you want to pull that every so often, every few inches, then that makes that really nice, tight, flat and sturdy. So you want to continue all the way down to the end of your work, and that is the mattress stitch. We're now going to move on to the next seaming method, which is the whip stitch. So this is really good for projects that aren't taking a huge amount of weight. So for example, with the mattress stitch, I mentioned about shoulders of a cardigan or maybe even a jumper. That's going to take quite a bit of weight and quite a bit of pulling, so it's a nice sturdy stitch. This would be good, say for example, if you're making an infinity scarf and you are just joining together. It's not going to take a huge amount of weight, so this will be good for something like that. What we want to do here is, again, you probably want to use your tail end, but if you don't have that, you can attach some more yarn. And then we're going to go from front to back and then back to front, just to start off that stitch. And then again, I would probably do that once more in that very first stitch, just to start it off and give a little bit more stability in that first stitch. And then you can go ahead and start the whip stitch. So we're simply going to go into the next stitch and then the corresponding stitch of the second attachment, or your second square, second piece, whichever side you're doing, and then come back around and go through and through and pull your yarn through. So working around and around, coming back, going through both thicknesses, and this is simply what you're going to do all the way across. So you just want to take your time with it because you can get a little bit tangled. You notice how I'm just pulling through small sections at a time. I'm not pulling too tight on here at the moment, but you can go ahead and pull a bit tighter, just to make sure that's nice and secure. Now obviously you won't see this as much if you're using the same colour, but you can see here that how the stitches are laying, and then also on the back they will lay like this. So you would simply work your way all the way along, do a double insert on the last stitch, and then sew in your ends. So that is the whip stitch. The final seam I want to show you today is the invisible seam, or the invisible stitch. And this is really good if you are wanting to join two different colours together and it's important that they aren't seen from the front of the work. So what we do here is we actually work with our right sides facing. So I would bring these two pieces together like so. And then we're also going to just be working into the back loops only. So remember, we have the right sides facing, so the back loop on this first piece here would be this piece. So if we go into the full stitch, this would be the back loop. And then if we go into the full stitch of the second piece, the one furthest away from us would be the back stitch, or the back loop. So I'm going to pull this through, and again, like the other ones, I'm going to go through that twice, like so. And then this is a little bit like the whip stitch, but we are just working into the back loop only. So you pick up that back loop and the back loop of the second piece and pull it through. Now, of course, if you can, or where possible, you're going to be using the same colour yarn. But if you have two colours like I have for the two pieces of crochet, then you would choose one of the colours, and usually the most subtle of the two, but that can just be personal preference. So I would either use the lilac or the mint green colour for this, but obviously I'm using this other colour for demonstration purposes to make it easier to see. So this is what you're going to do, is simply work your way down. Again, you want to stop every so often and pull that so that it is sitting nicely together, and it creates that invisible seam. So you can just see it slightly through here. I could perhaps just pull that down a little bit more, but as I say, you want to be conscious of what colours you're using for this. So yes, that is your invisible seam. You can see that on this one you will have a slight groove on your join. It will be flat on the back and then a groove on this side. I think that gives some nice definition to if you're joining squares or something. It just gives it a nice bit of interest there, but obviously it's total personal preference depending on what kind of look you are going for. So there we go, they are the 3 crochet sewing seam methods. If you did use any of these in your projects, please make sure that you tag me on Instagram so that I can see them, Bella Coco Crochet. Please also give this video a thumbs up, leave me a comment in the comments section below. I absolutely love to read your comments. Also click that subscribe button and the bell button to be kept up to date with all of my latest videos. Thank you so much for watching and I shall see you again next time. Bye!